If you're taking up soldering, then chances are you want to know what kind of equipment you're going to need to get started. And you've come to the right place to learn that. I have 10 pieces of equipment that you're going to need to buy before anything else when you start soldering. At least this is what I recommend. You can substitute things here and there, but as a beginner, these are the things that I would recommend. So number one is going to be the most obvious, your soldering iron. Now I have a couple different recommendations on that. You can go with a cheap plug-in-the-wall type iron, and those are good to start with purely because they're cheap. It doesn't matter so much if you tear it up, and it helps you learn good technique because your technique is the only variable. You can't adjust the temperature, you can't do much with the tip. But if you have a little bit of a higher budget and you don't want to start at the bare minimum, then I would go with a $50 soldering station on Amazon. I personally have this Yuhua Chinese brand, and it serves me really well. I got it for $50. But you can't solder without solder. So I only recommend lead solder, and the brand is Kester, which is a very well respected brand of solder. If you see Kester, you know it's a good quality. And I recommend 60-40 tin lead or 63-37 tin lead. The difference there is just 63-37 will solidify all at once as it cools. 60-40 will solidify gradually. You'll want a diameter between 0.5 and 0.8 millimeters. The smaller the diameter, the easier it is to control the amount of solder you add to the joint at a time. And it's generally better to get the smaller diameter if you're a beginner, but between 0.5 and 0.8 is good. I usually use 0.8, but I've used smaller and it all gets the job done. But now you have the equipment you need to actually make solder joints. You might be wondering how you're going to hold your stuff in place without burning yourself or without having to have a third arm, and that's where helping hands come in. And this is one type of helping hands. It's the most common. Mine's a little old, little broken. Those aren't the only ones that I use. But what those will do is you can, I suppose the function's obvious. You can clamp wires in it, you can clamp circuit boards in it. They even make circuit board holders if you're soldering to circuit boards. And this sort of stuff really just makes your life easier when you are soldering. You don't have to push something around the table or try and add solder and then use your hand to hold. And that's not a good idea anyway because of technique things I'm not going to get into right now. So now you have your iron, your solder, and your helping hands, but it doesn't help you a whole lot if you can't see what you're working on. If you're working in a dimly lit space, that's just difficult to do. So one thing you're going to need is a good bright lamp. And I can't show you this very well because it's on my desk. I'm literally just using a DC light with a DC power supply held by some helping hands. It's really simple. But if you are beginning, I recommend just to invest in a nice task lamp, like an articulating lamp. I don't even have one. I have this gooseneck type, and that can be plenty of light if what you're working on is close to the light, or rather if your light is close to what you're working on. But now sometimes you're going to have things that you need to work on that are not quite easily positioned in the helping hands. And that's where having a good set of tweezers comes in. And I've got several different kinds. It's good to have a variety, and they're cheap. If you can pick up a variety pack, you may as well go ahead and do it. But these are going to be your most common type. And they might even come with your soldering station, in which case you've already got something that's good to start with. Usually you would need tweezers if there's something that you have to move or position while heating and it's just too hot to touch with your fingers. You need something to touch it with that is less clumsy than a big old pair of pliers. Sometimes we even use them to hold wires in place as you're soldering them. But you can't really solder onto a wire if you haven't got them stripped. So the next thing on the list is wire strippers. And these are the automatic ones that I really prefer to use. They're cheap, no name. You don't have to get anything special. And here's another type. This one's really common, especially in electricians' toolboxes. They'll both get the job done. I prefer the automatic most of the time. Anything the automatic can't do, I usually strip with the razor blade. So this doesn't see a lot of use in my space. But you're also going to need to be able to cut your wires to length and trim your pins on your circuit boards. And you can trim wires with the cutters that are on the wire strippers, though those are usually subpar in my experience. So you're going to want a set of side cuts, and the type that I recommend are flush cutters. And the reason for that is their cutting surface is flush with the bottom side of that. And what that does is it makes not only a good cutter, as good as any side cuts for cutting wire, but it makes it great for getting right flush up against a board, a circuit board, when you're clipping leads. That's very helpful. So I recommend at least one set of flush cutters. But now you've been doing all this soldering, you have to make sure you're keeping your soldering iron clean. So you're going to need brass wool. Some people like to use a wet sponge. I can't speak to how well that works because I don't use one personally, and I don't use one because it's not really necessary. The brass wool does everything I need it to do. I clean my iron in it every time I use it. If you get the soldering station that I have, it'll come with it. But if it doesn't, it is well worth getting brass wool because your soldering tips will thank you. They will last a lot longer. And now once you've got everything soldered, your iron's nice and clean, it worked for you all the way through your whole build, your first real project that you actually want to do something and it's not just practice, you're going to need a way to tell and make sure everything is good, all the joints are good, there's no short circuits, and to troubleshoot any issues that you do have. And so you're going to need a digital multimeter. And it really doesn't have to be anything expensive. This one, it's a small version. It doesn't even have removable cables, removable probes. It's just something that I use to test for resistance, for continuity, for voltage. It comes in real handy, and if you have more than one, great. But you want to make sure you have at least one, and it doesn't have to be real expensive. I wouldn't go bottom of the barrel cheap, but that can work in a pinch. Just get something that can get the job done, and you're not going to be worried about it failing on you within the next year. And now, to fix those inevitable mistakes that happen while soldering that you might discover with the multimeter, you might discover before, you're going to want a manual desoldering pump. And you don't have to really do any desoldering for this to come in handy. Eventually you probably will do some desoldering, but where these really come in handy is, let's say you have too much solder on a joint and you need to get rid of it and start over because all your solder's gotten oxidized and you spent through the flux that's in your solder wire. If you get that hot with the soldering iron and add a little extra solder to it, then with the desoldering pump, you can prime it, and then when you push the button, it releases the plunger on the inside and it sucks on this end. And then every now and then you have to open these up and empty them out to keep them clean. But they come in real handy whether or not you're actually doing any desoldering. And I want to add something to the solder that I forgot to mention earlier, is you want to make sure you get rosin core. You don't want solid core solder. Rosin is just flux, it's pine rosin. I recommend getting lead solder with pine rosin. Other types of flux do exist, though they are a lot less common. Pine rosin does not make toxic fumes. They're a mild irritant at worst, unless you're sensitive to them, in which case they can be a lot worse. But in general, it's basically just the same as campfire smoke. But the flux just makes the solder really flow and stick to everything well. And you don't want solder wire that doesn't have it in it. And With good technique, you really don't need to buy extra flux. It's good to have, but in my list of essentials, flux just barely doesn't make the list. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. Consider subscribing if this is the kind of content that you like. Hit the bell so you know when new videos come out. And if you're interested in learning to solder in a live workshop setting where you can get live feedback, go to the link in the description and join the mailing list. And you're not going to be spammed. It's just so I know that you're interested and so I can contact you when live workshops are happening. I'll see you guys in the next one.